I'm showing you how to make my double chocolate chip banana muffins with a gorgeous dome on top, just like the kind you buy at the bakery. They're made gluten-free with oat and almond flour and are naturally sweetened with bananas and maple syrup, and without refined sugar or white flour. I've incorporated cottage cheese that is blended smooth with the banana to provide delicious flavor, moisture, and additional protein. And I'll share an easy technique for baking them in the oven to get that beautiful dome on top. We're going to start with our wet ingredients, which includes 2 bananas. And you want bananas that are nice and ripe, that has the brown spots on the peel. And they're nice and soft on the inside, which means they are at their maximum sweetness. Bananas are one of my favorite natural sweeteners to bake with. Now you could mash your bananas with a fork, but I prefer to use my immersion blender. But you could also combine all your wet ingredients into an upright blender. So we're going to add the rest of our wet ingredients except for the eggs, and then we'll blend them all until smooth. Next, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of cottage cheese, 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 1/3 cup of applesauce, unsweetened, 2 tablespoons of oil, and light olive oil is my favorite. And for an extra little kick of flavor, 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And the great thing about mixing it first with the cottage cheese is that it's going to remove all of that curdled cottage cheese texture. So it's just going to be smooth and creamy. Well, that looks great. Now I'm going to add 2 eggs plus 1 egg white to the batter. And then to avoid overmixing, I'm just going to use a whisk and blend that together until smooth. Next, we're going to add our dry ingredients, and we're going to start with our oat flour. Now you can buy your oat flour already ground up, or it's super easy to make at home. All you need are some quick or old-fashioned oats and then an upright blender or a magic bullet or something similar. And then you can blend them down for just a few seconds to become a very fine oat flour. So we're going to add 2 cups of oat flour. And to lighten the texture and really complement the oat flour, we're going to add 1/2 cup of almond flour. And this is going to add delicious flavor as well as some additional nutrients. And then we'll add 1/3 cup of cocoa powder. And then I have 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'll just shake those right on top. Then I'll just take my whisk and mix these together. And you'll know you have the right consistency when you drip your batter and it can hold its peaks. So that's perfect. Now we're going to add 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Now I do like to sprinkle a few extra chocolate chips on top of my muffins before I bake them. So you can either use your 1/2 cup now and then add a few more on top of your muffins, or you can hold out a few from your 1/2 cup if you're really trying to keep to that 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. As far as I'm concerned, you can never have too much chocolate. And you can use whatever chocolate chips you like based on your dietary preference. And then I find it's easier to fold them in with a spatula instead of my whisk, because those chocolate chips like to get trapped inside the whisk. Now we can fill our muffin tray, and you can decide if you want to use cupcake liners or if you just want to pour them right into the tray. I'm going to go ahead and use these paper liners, but I will give it a quick spray with some non-stick just to make sure those muffins come out easily. And I found it super easy and convenient to use a 1/3 cup batter scoop to get the batter into the muffin cups. So I'm just going to scoop out about a 1/3 cup of batter. And as I'm scooping it into the cup, I'm going to allow it to mound up in the center so that it's already creating that beautiful shape. Now, if you use muffin liners inside your cups, you're going to use a little bit less batter than if you were just pouring your batter directly into the cups. Now, this recipe is a little bit generous on the amount of batter that it creates, so it's possible you'll have some extra. But you can fill each of your cups almost to the top, and then I like to go in and add just a little bit of an extra dollop, and this will help to create that high dome on top. Since I do have some extra batter, I'm going to go ahead and just spray a little mini loaf pan with some non-stick, and then I'll just pour the rest of my batter right into the pan, and then it can cook right alongside the muffins. So I'm just going to pour this extra batter right into my little bread pan. Before I bake these, I want to add a few extra chocolate chips on top. So I'm just going to take about 5 chocolate chips and just add them right to the top center of each of the muffins. Not only will this look beautiful, but it will also add even more chocolate, which is never a bad thing. As your muffin rises, it's going to spread, so you can add your chocolate chips towards the center. And I'll add a few to the top of my little mini loaf. Now my simple baking hack for getting that nice high dome on the muffins is to put them in a 425-degree oven, and then as soon as your timer goes off, you're going to turn the heat down to 350 degrees and then set your timer for an additional 20 minutes. Having that higher heat in the beginning is just going to give them a little more of a boost, and then they're going to bake with that higher center. So So these are going into a 425-degree oven for 5 minutes. My timer just went off after the 5 minutes, so I left the muffins in the oven, just turned the temperature down to 350, and then set the timer for 20 minutes. So here are some muffins that I baked earlier and then allowed to cool on the counter. Now this half of the muffins were baked using my hack for getting that higher dome top, whereas this half of the muffins were just baked at 350 degrees for 28 minutes, which you can absolutely do. But as you can see from the side view, they don't bake quite as high, and then the muffins that got the little heat boost in the beginning have this really beautiful crack to the top, which I think is just really aesthetic. But they both are going to taste exactly the same. And I love how adding those chocolate chips to the top before it went into the oven makes them look even more beautiful. So I'll go ahead and peel back the paper, and then we'll break this guy in half. Ooh, just this beautiful sponge inside that's just light and fluffy. That is so yummy. As soon as I bite in, I get that delicious chocolate flavor and that natural sweetness that's coming in from the banana. And then I just get that really wonderful texture that's coming in from the oat and from the almond flours. Just has a really earthy and satisfying flavor to it. As a mother of 6, these have become a staple in my household, especially with teenagers who get up early in the morning and don't have a lot of time to make breakfast. They can easily grab these and run. And these also make a delicious after-school snack. And I love knowing that we're eating these homemade muffins that have nutrient-dense ingredients and that are naturally sweetened without any refined sugar or white flour. Now these will store really well in your fridge or your freezer, but I do recommend warming them up in the microwave for about 12 to 15 seconds before you eat one. It just helps to soften the chocolate and the texture and just really enhances the flavor. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen, and I've included a link to the full recipe in the video description below, which takes you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who you think would love this recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen.